Hey there, everyone, and a very happy Wednesday to you today. I hope everyone is doing really well. I hope your week is going well and that your day is either finishing on a good start or getting off to a good start. My name is Sara Newman, and I'm really excited to be joining you for this Altenew YouTube Live. So while we're waiting for people to join in with us this afternoon or this evening, depending on where you are, I'll just give a little wave out there as folks I see are popping in. And I just hope that everybody is ready for a fun afternoon or fun session of crafting. Cece is saying hello. Hi, Cece. It's nice to see your name pop up, the first one. The lovely Lydia will be behind the Altenew badge today, so she will be catching all of the things that I don't. Hi, Kathy. It's good to see you coming in. Nice to see you. So, while we are getting started, just give a big wave to everyone. Hello. Oh, people are saying hi to Lydia too. Hi, Sue. It's good to see you. Just thanks so much for joining us today. One little bit of housekeeping that I'm sure Lydia will also jump in and remind us of is that if you share today's video while we are live, you can be entered in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. And oh, there's Lydia's message. So she beat me to it. Just let us know how you shared, because unlike a Facebook Live, we can't see that. So if you post in the comments down below that you've shared and let us know how you shared, then you can be entered in for that $15 gift certificate. And I know what I have on my wish list over at Altenew, which is, my wish list is usually pretty long. So, if you win that $15, let me know and I can probably help you spend it. Actually, I'm sure anybody who's joining us tonight can help you spend it. So good luck to everybody. Remember, just post those comments down below. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm going to show you the stamps and the dies that I'm working with today, and then I'm going to show you a couple little bits and pieces. Normally I have some cards finished and ready to show you, but this time I've got some more works in progress, what we'll call works in progress, and I will be showing those to you as we go along. So first, let's start out with the stamp set. This is the Wavy Roses stamp set. I'll back up a little bit so that you can see. So this is a really fantastic collection if you are into clean and simple cards. As you can see, the roses have kind of a sketchy illustrated look, so it's quite free form, not too terribly detailed. I mean, they're just perfect for coloring in, and that's what we're going to be doing tonight. So you've got a large rose collection, kind of a double rose set here. You've got another accent piece here with the leaves, and then you have the rose here. And we've also got a smaller one right up here as well. Now you've also got lots of leaves on here too, so that you can do some background designs. You can also do some layering too, and I'll show you a little bit of that as well. I'm not sure if with the shine from the lights, if you're able to see, but there are also a lot of really cool sentiments on here. So you have missing you so much, bestie. That's a fun one. Sending thanks. I'm just a call away. You have wish you were here. You make every day awesome. You have thank you for always having my back. So true to Altenew form, the sentiments are always just heartfelt and really nice, but ones that you don't tend to find in lots of other stamp collections. So now with this stamp set, you also get a trifold. I'll back up again so that you can see. With this, you've got card projects. So you've got some ideas here, 1 and 2. As you can see, there's a cut line on here. So if you wanted to use this like in combination with your stamp positioner to get the exact same positioning on here, you could do that. There are also more project ideas on the inside here. And then if I turn this, you can see that they always give you, it's like a recipe almost of all of the ink colors that they use to create those projects. So you have all of this inspiration to hand. You also have, this is one of my favorite parts, is the coordinating or you might like selection, this is the one I have my eye on. I love this. I think that is going to look really cool. I don't know if you guys remember, there was another set called A Study in Watercolor. It was kind of similar to that, had some silhouette shapes, and that is one of my favorites. So I think that this one is the floral shadow. So that's on my wish list, along with about 18 other things. Okay, so that is the Wavy Roses collection. I'm going to be working with that. And the Wavy Roses also has a die set. And the die set, of course, is just meant to make your life easier, because instead of cutting around all of these images, although you could certainly do that, but you probably don't want to do it if you're making batches of cards, or if you like to do lots and lots of layering. A die really just makes everything so much easier. So you're going to have a die for the large, the medium, the blossom, the little one, which is really handy to have if you want to do multiples of those. And you also have all of the leaves on here. So all of those come in here, and I normally put the two of them together in one of my little storage pouches, and keeps everything in one place and easy to use. So those are the stamps and dies that we're going to work with. For the rest of the supplies I'm going to use, I've got, you know I love them, I've got my little ink pads. We're going to do some coloring in with those. I also want to do a little bit of coloring in with some of the metallic shimmer sprays. I am not going to spray, I'm going to be painting in with these. And then my favorite, the Obsidian Black ink pad. This is a pigment ink. It is one of my all-time favorites. I loaned it to someone for a while because I was out of town, and I just got it back, and I feel like I've missed it a lot. So this is one of my favorites. I also have a little bit of embossing that I'm going to show you. I've already done the embossing because I know you guys have seen me do that before, and also because this is the Golden Peach embossing powder. And look, it's coming to the very, very end of the jar, so I'm conserving every last granule of that. So you see why my shopping list at Altenew is so long. So a couple of the techniques that we're going to be looking at, we're going to go pretty quick and easy. Some nice simple outline designs, a little bit of spattering on here, and quick sentiment. This is just to show you that you can stamp, color, spatter, if you want to, mount it up onto some black cardstock, and you've got a card that I think is really just a nice and simple greeting for somebody. So you can keep things really quick and easy. If you wanted to, you can also do some layering on here. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. As I mentioned, some embossing, some brayering. Here's another one of the cards that I did finish up that I wanted to show you. So then we're going to go into some other color techniques. And I think you can see when I tilt that, there's a bit of this shine on here. That's from the metallic shimmers. So again, a welcome to everybody who's joined in while I have been talking. I see a lot of comments that say that the rest of you like the silhouette stamps too. So we're all going to have that one on our shopping list. Okay, so what I'm going to do is tilt down the camera so that you can see my work surface. I do have a new camera mount, so I'm hoping that this doesn't make you too dizzy as I tilt this down. Apologies. And I'm going to arrange my craft mat a little bit here so that hopefully you can see this. Okay, I think we are ready to go. So first things first, I'm going to start with this card project. And we're just going to see how this stamps and do a little bit of building things up. So what I'm going to do is grab a piece of just smooth white cardstock. I'm not using anything fancy for this. I'm going to have to move aside all of my little bits of paper here. Got a lot on my work surface. Oh, and before I start stamping, so I'm using my Misty, my stamp positioner. Apologies, I know there's a bit of a glare on here. What I wanted to show you though, and I wish I could remember who was the person who posted this idea online. So you know how the Misty has this like stack of paper, and you've got your foam pad in here if you're using clear acrylic, and you would take that out if you're using red rubber mounted stamps. So this piece is one that, it's just one of these sheets of paper, and I laminated it. Now you can laminate it with a laminating tool, or you can use packing tape, which is what I did. And this just means that I always have a clean piece, particularly for videos. But you'll notice, like I've got all of these kind of grubby, the half stamped pieces of paper in here. And I like to have the paper in there because it does add just that extra little bit of space, kind of like a shim, to make sure that you're getting really good positioning on there. But if you're ever finding that you've got a lot of these kind of bits of paper that are getting really inky and a bit dirty, try laminating or just covering yours with packing tape. I just used that wide tape and overlapped it on there. So pretty easy to do, but it means that I can just wipe this off when I'm done if I get any stray ink on there. Okay, so I'm gonna grab this stamp right here, this nice big flower image, the wavy stamps. And again, just a plain piece of white cardstock. You could also use a watercolor cardstock if you wanted to. And I'm just going to pop this down on here. You guys know how the MISTI works. So I'll just press this here and then get ready to ink this up. So I'm using my Obsidian ink, which is my go-to black ink pad. It's just a really nice, crisp, dark black. It's like a really true black. And when it stamps, it just stamps beautifully. They have two gold pigment inks as well, which I really like. The black is a great basic. So I've got this. I'm just going to kind of clean this off quickly and then move it to one side. And then I'm going to grab my sentiment. So I've got lots of sentiments on here to choose from. And I'm going to take You Make Every Day Awesome. Because what a great sentiment to give to somebody, don't you think? And I'm just going to pop this down like so. So the fun thing about this, of course, is that you can play with the positioning. You can have this down at the bottom. You can have it up at the top, just depending on the orientation of your card, if you have it vertically or horizontally. And then I'll just ink this one up again. And stamp that down. And I think I've got a pretty good start to my card at this point. So now I'm going to move all of this aside and put my stamp positioner over here. And I've got a really good basic. So you can see how nice those lines are. It is kind of a doodled, Sue, I think it was you who said it's kind of a doodled effect. And you're absolutely right. It's just a really fun and pretty look. Now I can color this in with lots and lots of different mediums, but I'm going to go with my trusty inks. And I'm going to use, let's see, I'm going to use Aqualicious because that's kind of my always go-to color. We've also got the Parrot on here. These two, if you're doing flowers, these two are always just a really great combination, of, especially if you got that nice bright green on there for the leaves. So working onto my craft sheet, I'm going to put down some of that Aqualicious, just right down onto the craft sheet itself. I'm going to move aside my piece of cardstock and just bring in a bit of water. And I'm going to spray the water next to my ink, not into it. Because if you spray into it, it can tend to kick back and spatter color where you maybe don't want it to go. And I've got some water brushes to hand. Now these are my go-tos when I'm painting in images. You can use a paintbrush if you want to. I like the water brushes because I find that because they're plastic, you don't have to worry about, like with wooden paintbrush handles, they tend to chip and get a little bit damaged when you're using a lot of water with them. So I like to use the plastic water brushes because I really do kind of abuse these, and they always stand up. So I'm just going to be painting this in with my watery ink. Now, I mentioned that I'm not really using a fancy cardstock. I am using a smooth cardstock, and I am using a fairly sturdy cardstock. So it's not really, really lightweight, because I am working with a watery medium, even though it's not, you know, lots of layers of water or paint or something, it is still a watery effect. So you don't want to overdo it with a lightweight cardstock because that can end up buckling and warping a little bit. Okay, so I think I need a little bit more water over here. This is where the craft sheet just really comes in handy, not only to protect your work surface, but also as your color palette. Now you're probably noticing that my black stamped flowers are not smearing, and that is because of the pigment ink pad, the obsidian ink pad that I stamped with. So that's what is preventing this from smudging and smearing and going everywhere. So there we go. Pretty quick and easy. I think I want to blend out a little bit of this color here that I've got on there. You can play with this though. You can add as much color as you want to. You can make it as dark as you want it to be. But I think I'll just have a go with it like this and call it good. Now what I'm going to do is mop up my Aqualicious and do the same process using my Parrot ink. So you can see that fun bright green color on there. And I'll just, again, pop down a little bit of color or water on there. And I'm using a different brush for this, as you can tell. I have brushes, I've got a whole handful of these, and I use them for kind of different color families. So I've got one that is totally devoted to black ink, because once you've got black ink on something, it can be really tricky to get it out. And then I've got some others that I use just for greens, any color of green or blues and that kind of thing. And once again, you can use the doodled lines on here to do some darker areas, keep some areas light if you want to do a little bit of shading. Unlike some really realistic flowers, these are not going to require a whole lot of shading. So if you're somebody who's a little bit hesitant about shading and coloring, then this would be a great way to get started. So pretty quick and easy. Now again, I could leave this as it is, but I wanted to add a little bit more color back here on the background. And to do that, I'm going to keep my water brush and my watery Parrot on hand. And I'm going to load up my water brush with this watery medium. I'm going to hold it over here and I'm going to tap it, and that's going to create a really fun spattered effect. Now, I don't want the spattering to go on my flower or my leaves or my sentiment. So I'm going to do some masking. For that sentiment, I've just got a little piece of Post-it note. So I'm just going to pop that down here. And then to cover the roses, I've used cutting die to cut just a piece of scrap paper. And then I'm going to pop this down just right on top. You don't have to secure it down. You don't have to tape it down or anything. Just place it on top, and then just holding your brush over your piece. The more water you use, the less distinct your color will be, so the more diluted it will be. So you can kind of gauge how you want that to go. And then just lift off your masking piece, lift off your Post-it note, straight up, and then you've got a really fun little background on here. So pretty quick and pretty easy, and I think it's a fun way to create something that is simple and stylish, kind of goes for lots of different looks and styles, and as you can see, it went together really, really easily. And for the original, what I did is simply mounted this up onto black cardstock and then put it onto the front of my card. Now, you can leave this flat. The other thing I did, though, is I stamped and colored and die cut the smaller blossom on here. And what I like to do then is use some little foam tape tabs. Foam tape is one of my most used supplies in my crafting area. And I really like them for quick and easy cards, clean and simple cards, because it gives a little bit of dimension to something without kind of overwhelming. So I've got my little tape tabs on here. Let's see, it's better if I turn it around. And then maybe I'll just pop this right up here. So again, just a little bit of depth. I've got the flowers pointing in different directions, so there's some nice movement. They're not all sort of facing the same direction. And I've got a little bit of dimension on there too. So that's the first card that I wanted to show you. And I thought that was pretty quick and easy and made for a really nice kind of goes anywhere card. So I'm going to set this one aside and put away my Aqualicious. And let's talk about embossing. So I've taken one of the blossoms, so this large blossom here, kind of a spiral effect. This one I have stamped and embossed with the golden peach. Now you saw my sad little almost empty jar of golden peach embossing powder. If you can see the bottom, you know it's time for a refill. But that has taken me a very long time to use, I have to say. So the process, of course, is that you stamp your image with an embossing ink pad. You cover it with your embossing powder, tap off the excess, and do some heat setting. And then you will have an image like this that's got a really nice raised surface. And what I like about the golden peach is that it's just a really nice, soft, golden-y color. Really pretty. It's not too brash, it's not too bright, really nice and soft. The other nice thing about it too, of course, is that when you use this in combination with any watery medium, because it has that raised edge on there, it's actually going to be a resist. So I'm going to be working with the Caribbean Sky ink pad, and this is one that I also like a lot. You can tell I'm into the blues and greens. Let's see, that's not the brush I wanted. So again, I've got my watery puddle on here. Now, when I color this, I can go over the lines. I don't have to be really staying within those lines. But because the die cutting will actually leave a border around the outside edge of the flower, I don't want to just, you know, scribble over the top of the whole thing. So I'm going to be pretty careful about that and just go in and allow that color to go over those embossed edges. And again, if you wanted to do some darker areas and lighter areas, you can definitely do that. But I think this will do for now. And I love the blue in contrast to that golden peach. I think that's just really pretty. And again, I'm just working onto a smooth white cardstock, nothing really fancy. So you don't need to have a really really thick cardstock for this. Just do be careful with how much water you're using depending on the type of cardstock you're working on. Okay, I think I've got this. And then we're ready to go. Now you do want to make sure before you die cut this, do make sure that you have let this dry completely. If you don't, then you can tend to get some tearing or warping of the paper when you do your die cutting. So you could also, of course, die cut this beforehand if you wanted to. So I'm going to set that aside to dry. And then I've got some of my leaves, which I've stamped and die cut. I just love these leaves. I think they are absolutely beautiful. And I think they are a beautiful shape, really simple, clean lines. You can kind of put them, you know, in lots of different directions as well. So just depending on which side you want to be the tip and which side you want to be kind of tucked under the flower. So again, just coming in here with a little bit of ink. And in this case, I'm using the Parrot once again, but Altenew has lots and lots of really pretty greens. So you can choose whatever you've got in your stash. Parrot happens to be one of my favorites. Okay, so now I've got my flower and I've got my leaves ready to go. Again, let those dry and then die cut those. And you could speed up the dry time on these with a heat tool if you wanted to. That would also work. But I've got my flower that is already die cut and ready to go. Move these guys to one side. And I've also got my leaves. Now, I've got little pieces of masking tape on the leaves. And that's just to help me as I'm placing these together with my flower. So let me bring in the card that I have started. And for this one, again, just keeping it clean and simple, I've got my stamped sentiment, missing you so much, bestie. I think that's really sweet. I've got that mounted onto just top and bottom onto some kind of a shimmery cardstock on here. And then what I'm going to do is just make my arrangements. I think there was a question about the color that I'm using. I used the Caribbean blue, and this one, it does look a little bit lighter. This one I had 2 goes with the Caribbean blue. So this is just kind of a quick 1 coat, and this has a little bit more application on it. So that's why it might look a bit different. This one also still needs to dry, so it might lighten up just a bit as it does. So I hope that answered your question. So now what I'm going to do is just play with the positioning here. Again, just figuring out where I want my flower to go, where I want the leaves to go. If I want them extending off the side of my card or down like this. So I'm going to go with something that looks about like this. If you do want your leaves to extend off the side of your card, just bear in mind that when you do that, you're probably going to have a handed over card rather than a put it in the envelope card. So just keep that in mind. And then I'm going to press this down and make sure that I've got my leaves on here. And I've got those all secured with my masking tape or washi tape or whatever kind of tape you want to have on hand. And then let me just grab some double-sided tape and I'll pop this down. Now again, you could use foam tape for this if you wanted. I'm just going to go with the good old double-sided, provided I can get the liner off. There we go. Okay, and then position this down like so. And so there we've got, again, quick and easy. Now, if you wanted to, you could leave these leaves to be a little bit dimensional, but most likely if it's going to be, the card will be handled or you're going to put it in the post, you may want to add a little bit more adhesive down there as well. So again, pretty quick, pretty easy, using the same color palette almost as our other card on here, but I think just has a really different look. I love the bold of the black, but I also love that soft shine of the embossing. So this is our second card. So now let's take a look at another favorite technique of mine. And again, this is doing a little bit of spattering, but it's actually going to be spattering with another medium. So in this case, I'm going to be working with the metallic shimmer sprays. Now, they're meant to be sprays, as the name would suggest, and as you can probably tell here. So basically what you would do to get a really pretty shimmery effect on your background is give this a shake and spray it onto your surface, onto your cardstock. You can definitely do that. I find that there are lots of other ways to use these too, so I always like to share those with people. So again, I'm going to be working on to some white cardstock, and I'm going to give this a shake. And I think you can hear the little ball in there rattling. You definitely want to keep shaking until that ball is rattling. That's going to tell you that all of the wonderful, lovely, shimmery stuff that's at the bottom is mixed in with everything. So now rather than using the spray nozzle on here, I'm just going to take out this piece, which I don't know what, I know there's a technical term for this kind of straw, but I don't know what that is, so I'm just going to call it the straw for right now. So what you're going to do, the same way that you did your spattering with the brush, you're going to do spattering with this. So you're just going to tap this on here, again, as much or as little as you want to. You might even want to turn things so your spray is going in some different directions. And then, very, very important, always put the cap on and close it before you move on to your next step. Otherwise, you may find yourself with a metallic metallic shimmer surface. So the color I'm using is the Mountain Mist. And this is going to give me a really pretty color as well as some shine. I'm going to move this a little bit. I'm hoping that you're able to see the shine on there. It's like almost like a really fine mica effect. And this may be one of those things that you just see better in person. But it's a really nice soft shimmer. So this is going to be my background. I'm going to let this dry while I work on the rest of the card. And the rest of the card is going to be super simple because I'm not going to add any other colors to things. But I did want to show you stamping another one of the images. And this is especially if you're just joining us and you maybe haven't seen how beautifully these stamp. So again, I'm going to pull out my Misty and I'm going to get the stamp that is this image right here. So this is a great piece because of course you can use it as a corner treatment, but if you tilt it and have it going kind of flat on the base of it, then it can be a top or a bottom onto your image. So what I'm going to do, since I know I want to cut this out, I'm just going to pop it down onto my cardstock. Again, close this up. Also working with my beautiful obsidian black. I'm so glad to have this back. Someone was borrowing it, I think I mentioned, and I was out of town, so I didn't need it. But when she gave it back to me, I just felt like, oh, I'm so glad to have that wonderful black ink pad back where it belongs. So here we go. And you can see how beautifully that stamps. It's just crisp, it's clean. It's a really perfect black for so many different things. And as we saw earlier, it also works really, really well if you are doing some wet medium on top of it, so it's not going to be smearing all over the place. So I saw a comment that somebody loves this stamp set, so much you can do with it. I think that is exactly what I discovered as well. So that you can get quite technique-y if you want to, but I think it also works beautifully just to be a clean and simple grab it and make cards set. One of those you can always go to. So now what I'm going to do is just run this through my die cutting machine, and ta-da, I've got my embossed piece, or my die cut piece. So now in this case, what I've done is die cut this element. I also did 3 of the smaller roses. Now this is really where I find that the cutting dies come in handy, because I would be happy to fussy cut one of these flowers and maybe this guy, but I don't know that I'd be quite so generous with my time in die cutting or hand cutting all of these little elements. Yeah, that was the magic of TV. Yeah. Surprise, here come my already cut pieces. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is move these aside, and also the magic of TV. I've got my dried piece of spattered background. So I think maybe you can see now a little bit better the shine on there, or the shimmer. It's quite subtle, but it's really lovely. And I'm going to start building my card from this. So as I mentioned, I'm not coloring any of these. I'm going to let them be just black and white, which at first made me a little bit nervous. And then I thought, oh, just go for it. Why not? So I have some other elements here too. Got black and white baker's twine, which I just really love as an accent. It's not too thick, it's not too bulky, it's not too wide, but it does add just a little something to cards. And then I've also got this stamped piece that says "Love you to pieces," which I just think is a really fun sentiment. So what I know I want to do is have my stamped and die cut piece down here. I also want to have some of this baker's twine going along, say, this area. So this is the fold of my card. Always good to check before you start building on it. My fold is over here. So I know that I want my baker's twine to go about here, and my sentiment to go like that, and then maybe to have this piece going here, and then kind of tucking in some of these other elements. So when I'm working with any kind of ribbon or twine or string, the thing that you want to do is, first of all, avoid any bulk if you can, so that it doesn't warp your cardstock when you send it. But also it's a little bit like, do you wrap the whole thing or how do you do this? So because I know I want to have a big image right here, what I'm going to do is just position one end of this right here. I'm gonna grab a piece of tape, and I'm just using washi tape for this. You could use a sturdier tape if you wanted to. And I'm just gonna tack that down like so, because I know that I want to have my flower be about here, somewhere in there. And then what I'm going to do is wrap this twine all the way around the front panel of the card. So this is the inside panel of the card. And this just means that I don't have to worry about like trying to glue the ends even with the end of the card. You could wrap the ribbon around the front piece of your cardstock if you wanted to, and then pop that up onto some foam tape. That also works. Let's see, that was maybe a bit much tape, too much tape. But this is just a really easy way that I found that makes it work, and then you can kind of hide things. Okay, so then I would just trim off the excess bit of ribbon on here. With all the things that I have spread out on my work surface, I don't have scissors, but that's okay. And then what I'm going to do is, again, come back to my elements for positioning. And so maybe I'll pop this down here. So I've got my sentiment, again, just black and white, put up on some foam tape. And I'm going to put this right down like so. With the foam tape, I want to make sure that it's going over my twine, but not foam tape and cardstock and twine all kind of bunched up together. And probably what I would do here is grab a little bit more foam tape as well. I'm going to put, just for now, just put this on the outside edges. And set this down like so. And then I've got all of these really fun little flowers, of course. This one's already got some foam tape on it. So I'm going to pull those off and set this one here. And then I've got more that I can kind of tuck in and around. So I could even have this one going like so. And then grab my scissors, trim off this extra bit of twine, trim off this little element here, and I've got my card ready to go. Now, if I wanted to, I could also add a little bow down here, maybe at the bottom. And of course, this is one of those kind of optical illusion almost. So I've got my ribbon tied, my bow tied, and then what I can do is glue that down separately right on top. And then that way it kind of looks like it's attached to the border on here, but it does give you a little bit more control over that. So this one, again, I think I mentioned that I was a little bit nervous about not coloring in the flowers, thought that that might be a bit boring, or maybe you'd prefer that there was some color going on there, and you could definitely color them. But I did think that it was pretty fun to have just a black and white, really nice, crisp image, especially because these lines are so clean and simple. I really like that. Okay, so that is our third card, more or less. Again, I go back and do some trimming on there, but I do want to show you another quick technique. And this one, again, is using the metallic shimmer sprays. And that's primarily to do our background. So what I want to show you with this one is that I've got, again, my regular piece of plain old cardstock, and I'm going to take two colors. So I've got the orange cream and I have the Puffy Heart, and these are colors that I use so much. They're two of my favorites. And again, what I'm going to do is give them a shake, and then we can start working with them. So hang on, I've got the orange cream. I'm going to shake this up. There we go. And in this case, what I'm going to do is decant a bit of this onto the craft sheet. You don't need to have a whole lot, but I don't like to dump out the color. This is probably why my supplies stay good for so long. I'm pretty frugal with them. So I've got a bit of this beautiful color on here, and I'm going to add a little bit of water, really just to make this a little more fluid and a little bit lighter. And I'm going to grab a brayer in this case. Now, little rubber brayers are a great tool to have on hand. I use mine all the time. And what I'm going to do is just run my brayer through that watery medium. Add a little bit more water in here so that I've got it all the way around my brayer, and then just brayer this onto my cardstock. Now you can go in one direction, you can have darker areas if you want to. I still want to have a little bit of the white showing, so I'm not going to overdo it. But this is going to give me an instant background that's got some pattern and dimension to it without being really bulky. So clean up this color here. And then what I'm going to do is leave this as it is. I'm going to come back with my Puffy Heart. Now you could dry this if you want to, either dry it with a heat tool or let it air dry. Then what I'll do, come back with my Puffy Heart, and I'm going to do the same technique that we did before with the straw. Again, if anybody knows the technical term for this part of the nozzle, let me know. I'm quite curious. And I'm just going to be tapping this on. Again, as much or as little as you want to. I love these two colors together. I think they just look really great. And then I've got some soft shimmer, some shine. I've got some pattern going on here. Again, it's not going to add a lot of bulk to my card. It's not going to add a lot of dimension, like real dimension, bumpiness, but it will give a little bit of color and style. Super, super simple. And then once you let that dry, you have your card background ready to go. Now, the other thing that I've done here is use this to paint in a stamped image. So I'm going to do this one pretty quickly. I'm just going to grab, let's see, I'm going to grab this stamped image here, this beautiful flower. I'm going to scoot aside a lot of my various elements here. And is this going to fit? I don't think it will. Let me grab another one. And pop this down on here. And once again, I'm going to do my stamping with my obsidian. How about if I close this up first? Oh, I can tell it's getting late in the day. I'm going to ink up the back side of my stamp. Don't do that. Okay, so inking this up with the black, and then stamping it. And again, this is going to be a perfect solution for my watery medium. So there's my beautiful stamp. I'm going to pop this to one side. And then what I can do is paint in my image. So again, working with the Puffy Heart and also the Mountain Mist, I'm just going to decant a little bit of this onto my craft sheet. And again, you can add water to this if you want to. It does help to lighten a little bit of the color. So let's see, which was my pink brush? I have to find my pink brush now. I think this one will do. And the same process that we saw for our other designs here is just painting this in. If you wanted to, you can definitely do the heat embossing technique with this, and that would be really pretty as well. So you've got lots of different options with this. And again, that obsidian is going to be perfect for our watery technique here. I'm just coloring this in pretty quickly. And when it dries, it's going to have that really beautiful shine on here. So that is with the Puffy Heart. And I've got the Mountain Mist that I'm going to add some here on my craft sheet. And get my green. And then just color this in as well. So as with any others, the amount of water that you use is going to impact the intensity of your color. So if you want to have a very soft watercolor effect, use more water. If you really want to get the full glitz of the metallic shimmer, then you can do that as well. So pretty quick and dirty, I suppose, for this. And it's got a lot of water in there, which is really helping to give a very watercolory look. Now, when that dries, I'm going to have a piece that will look more like this. And so you can see what I've done here is just simply taken that background. You're going to get a different look every single time you do this, just depending on how much color you use, how much coverage you use, and then how much you're adding onto your background. So I've just cut this down as a narrow strip, added that stamped sentiment on there. Thank you for always having my back. Wonderful sentiment. The beautiful pink on here, and then the leaves. Now, the leaves, as you can see, this is the main image, and then I've got two of those extra leaves. So just the leaves, which I've stamped and die cut. So those can be, you know, you can have as many leaves as you want to. They can be kind of popped in like so. And maybe with this one, you can really see the shimmer of that metallic on there. It's very subtle. It's really, really pretty. And then, of course, you can kind of tuck these in. And I was mentioning this earlier, and I don't know if it sounded the way I meant it to. But what I like about the leaves is there's kind of no right way or wrong way. So you could have, you know, this end, the fatter end being tucked under the flower, or you could have the thinner end being tucked under there. Really just kind of depends on the look you're going for and the space that you have on there. Okay, so that is our last card of tonight's session. I'm going to tilt up the camera, hoping again that we don't make anybody dizzy. Hello again. There we are. So I'll show you once again the cards quickly, the stamp set. You have a couple more minutes if you want to share tonight's video while we are still live. And you can be entered in for that $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. And I'll be happy to pass on my shopping list if you happen to win. So I'm sure you've got your own shopping list though. Okay, so once again, let's see, starting from the top. So we've done some basic watercoloring techniques using the dye-based inks. And I really just love this being quite quick and easy, a little pop of dimension on there. We've worked in some heat embossing as well, using that as a resist effect and doing some layering on there. And then I've got my half done card here. I'll hold it up gently with our black and white and really fun spattering design on there. I'll glue that all together and post a picture of it later. And then, of course, we have our metallic shimmer spray, brayered backgrounds, and painted image. So again, I kind of tilt that so that you can see on there. And just as a reminder, some of the supplies we're using, everything is everywhere on my work surface now. But let me hold these up for you. So it's the Wavy Roses that we're working with today. Really fun stamp set. I think you guys can see how versatile it is. Lots of great sentiments, lots of fun kind of doodled sketch designs. Don't forget loads of ideas and inspiration in there. And the coordinating dies that just make life a little bit easier. And don't forget Obsidian Black Pigment ink pad. This is going to be a great ink pad to be working with, especially if you are working in some watery mediums like anything water-based, especially our metallic shimmer sprays, or if you're doing any kind of watercolor painting with your dye-based inks. So those are going to be your go-to supplies for tonight. So I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you so, so much for joining me. Thank you to the lovely Lydia for helping and making sure that all of the information gets on there. Again, just another second to share tonight's live while we are live so that you can be in for that $15 gift certificate. So I hope you have all enjoyed tonight's session. Thank you so very much for joining me, and I will see you again in a couple of weeks, and I will look forward to that very much. So take care, everybody, and I will see you again next time.